Hey everybody, how are you today? I'm recording this on a Monday and it's the middle of May, and I'm guessing things are wrapping up for you with all of your schoolwork, and I hope that you are kind of using this time to be creative and doing some really fun things. Maybe you and your siblings are spending a lot of time together, and maybe that's a great thing. Maybe it's hard sometimes too, and that's okay. I'm going to continue reading some books this week that kind of continue with the idea of empathy, that idea of understanding how other people feel. And it's also is about kindness and treating other people with love and respect. And it talks, it's about social justice and social fairness and just really being mindful about other people's needs. So if you saw the Sunday school lesson this week, it was about the greatest commandment. And the greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart and to love your neighbor as yourself. So we are really called to love each other and care for each other. And so today's book is a book that I love. It's called Wilfrid, McDonald, Partridge, and it's by Mim Fox, and it's written by Julie Vivas. And this is a book I've had for a long time. I used to be a teacher, and one year at the end of the school year, one of my students gave this to me as a gift. And so it's something I also really value. But it's a very sweet story. And I'm just wondering if, as I read through it, if there are any connections that you can make to the story, if there's anything that happens in the story that reminds you of something in your own life. So let's start. There was once a small boy, called Wilfrid McDonald Partridge, and what's more, he wasn't very old either. His house was next to an old people's home, and he knew all the people who lived there. He liked Mrs. Jordan, who played the organ. He listened to Mr. Hosking, who told him scary stories. He played with Mr. Tippett, who was crazy about cricket. I wonder if you know what cricket is. I wonder if you know what the game cricket is, because that's what they're talking about here. Cricket is a game that they play like in England, and they play it in Australia, and they play it in India. They play it in lots of parts of the world. And in a way, it's kind of like baseball, but not really. So maybe you could explore and find out what cricket is. So he played with Mr. Tippett, who was crazy about cricket. He ran errands for Miss Mitchell, who walked with a wooden stick. He admired Mr. Drysdale, who had a voice like a giant. But his favorite person of all was Miss Nancy Allison Delacourt Cooper, because she had 4 names just as he did. He called her Miss Nancy and told her all of his secrets. I wonder if you have any older adults in your life who you just really love, who are just so important to you. One day, Wilfrid Gordon heard his mother and father talking about Miss Nancy. Poor old thing, said his mother. Why is she a poor old thing, asked Wilfrid Gordon. Because she's lost her memory, said his father. It isn't surprising, said his mother. After all, she is 96. What's a memory? Asked Wilfrid Gordon. He was always asking questions. It's something you remember, said his father. But Wilfrid Gordon wanted to know more, so he called on Mrs. Jordan, who played the organ. What's a memory? He asked. Something warm, my child, something warm. Is a memory hard to describe? Is it hard to figure out exactly what a memory is? Let's see what everybody else has to say. He called on Mr. Hosking, who told him scary stories. What's a memory? He asked. Something from long ago, my lad, something from long ago. Called on Mr. Tippett, who was crazy about cricket. What's a memory? He asked. Something that makes you cry, my boy, something that makes you cry. He called on Miss Mitchell, who walked with a wooden stick. What's a memory? He asked. Something that makes you laugh, my darling, something that makes you laugh. He called on Mr. Drysdale, who had a voice like a giant. What's a memory? He asked. Something as precious as gold, young man, something as precious as gold. So, Wilfrid Gordon went home again to look for memories for Miss Nancy, because she had lost her own. I think he's crawling through the fence in that picture. He looked for the shoebox of shells he had found long ago last summer and put them gently in a basket. He found the puppet on strings which always made everyone laugh, and he put that in the basket too. He remembered with sadness the medal which his grandfather had given him, and he placed it gently next to the shells. Next, he found his football, which was as precious as gold. And last of all, on his way to Miss Nancy's, he went into the hen house and took a fresh, warm egg from under a hen. Then Wilfrid Gordon called on Miss Nancy and gave her each thing, one by one. What a dear, strange child to bring me all these wonderful things, thought Miss Nancy. Then she started to remember. She held the warm egg and told Wilfrid Gordon about the tiny speckled blue eggs she had once found in a bird's nest in her aunt's garden. She put a shell to her ear and remembered going to the beach by tram long ago and how hot she had felt in her button-up boots. She touched the medal and talked sadly of the big brother she had loved, who had gone to the war and never returned. She smiled at the puppet on strings and remembered how she had remembered the one she had shown to her sister and how she had laughed with a mouth full of porridge. She bounced the football to Wilfrid Gordon and remembered the day they had met and all the secrets they had told. And the two of them smiled and smiled because Miss Nancy's memories had been found again by a small boy who was not very old either. The end. And there's a picture. And here's Wilfrid Gordon on the back on his skateboard. Well, I hope you liked that story. I wonder what you thought of that. I wonder if you were able to make a connection to that story in some way. Like maybe, like I said, maybe you have an older adult who you know, who you visit, who you love. Or maybe one of those stories was something you connected to. Or maybe one of the items that Wilfrid Gordon took to Miss Nancy, maybe that was something you could connect to. Like he took shells and an egg and a puppet and his football. So all of those things. So I think the importance for me of this story is that he loved Miss Nancy and he wanted to do things to care for her and he was concerned about her. And making the effort to take those things showed her how much he loved her. So that is definitely loving your neighbor. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope that we're able to come back together soon, and I hope you're well.